Mini episode 577 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by that NBA Lottery Pick, your pop culture influenced look at the world of hoops. Follow them on the web at that NBALotteryPick.com.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hey everybody, welcome. It's part 2C of the Kyle Ross History of the Royal Rumble anthology in the
featuring
FDH
Rick
Lounge.
Morris.
Yes, Rick Morris, Kyle Ross coming in. This is sort of like featuring senior feature from a Kroll Show sketch. I guess I'm the senior feature of this one. But we're going through year by year, part 2 of the Royal Rumble, which is 93 to 97. Go to part 1A, 1988, if you want to hear how the Rumble came to be, structural thoughts on it, that part of it. Go to part 2A, 1993, if you want to hear about overall thoughts for the era, tone setting, whatever. From there, we're just kind of taking it year to year. Interestingly enough, I liked 93. Kyle hated it. Kyle liked 94, thought it was decent. I thought it was dog crap. This is kumbaya time because it's 95 and we both hate it and we're both going to dump on it, and that's going to be fun in its own way.
Yeah, 1995 generally recognizes the nadir year of the WWF. It's one of those things that we've reached a point now in their history that, you know, I mock fantasy booking guy. No amount of, I would have done this at SummerSlam 94 would have meant a hill of beans to the company's bottom line at this point. Things just stunk. Wrestling was not in at all. I'll be honest with you. It was around this period where I almost gave up watching wrestling entirely. The only thing that kept me going was the ascension of Shawn Michaels to the top of the card. I'd always been such a big Shawn fan as soon as he became a singles wrestler. But, my God, is this just bad to watch?
Well, and here's the thing, too. While the WCW product wasn't any better, this was the last Royal Rumble before the start of the Monday Night Wars.
Yes, that's a good point. WCW's business was actually, you know what's, like, so upsetting?
Mm-hmm.
Is, like, Starrcade 94,
yeah,
which is, like, the most, to me,
mm-hmm.
is, like, the most armpit, hideous piece of shit show ever in wrestling history. Mm-hmm. Like, sold out, and like WCW was like so happy about the business they were doing.
Sure, their
their business was on the ascent. WWE's had kind of plateaued. It's funny that we say 95 is the nadir,
right?
It was, but and things eventually start picking up in 96 because of the Monday Night Wars. Probably.
And my point on that was you can see why Eric Bischoff smelled blood.
Yes.
You can absolutely see that and launch Nitro because the WWF had never been more vulnerable on any level than they were in this time period.
Yeah, and they probably actually got worse over the summer of 95, right before with King Mabel and stuff. So let's set the stage here as we do with every year. Mm-hmm. So Bret Hart does, of course, win the title at WrestleMania 10.
Yes.
The creatively booked main event title picture of that show that I love so. But as much as I guess I want to pretend that Vince really believed in him, I mean, he did send the whole roster out and put him on Bret on their shoulders and stuff, and really made Bret feel like a big deal. And to be honest with you, I think if you ask Bret right now, what his favorite title reign would be, I think it's a no contest that it's the 94 one, even though business may not have been great. That was when I thought Bret Hart was really like the feature guy, and maybe in Vince's mind he wasn't, but I thought he was, and the company was legitimately built around him. But by the end of 94, you have Diesel as the champion. Yep. The Diesel push did not end at the Royal Rumble. It went all the way. He won the title, much like Bret had 2 years earlier, out of nowhere. Although he had, you could see that they really were getting behind him.
He got the IC title run over the summer. It was in the midst of a tag team title run with Shawn Michaels. So you're right. It was not as out of nowhere.
He was done at a house
Bret's
show
one.
at MSG. He beats Bob Backlund in 8 seconds.
after Backlund had beaten Bret Hart in a screw job finish at the Survivor Series, which would not be the last one Bret Hart would ever have.
And, that did not do a lot of favors to Bret.
Uh-huh.
Having, he wrestled Backlund. That was like a 40-minute match.
Yeah.
Some people, really hate that match. I actually kind of thought it was good. I thought Owen Hart's performance, his role in that, outside the ring was tremendous. But then you have Diesel just destroy Backlund in 8 seconds with, a kick and a powerbomb. So Backlund's done with that.
Right.
Whatever shocking. And he did get over, but you killed him.
Yeah, he gets a semi-main match at WrestleMania,
but,
a rematch with Bret.
Yeah, but that sucked. But what you do for the Rumble here, in addition to having the Rumble, you have to have world title matches. You do Diesel Bret, which logically made sense. You had Bret, who kind of had gotten hosed. Okay, he's not going to re-challenge Backlund because Backlund held it for 6 days or whatever, 2 days, whatever it was. So he challenges the new champion Diesel. And after Bret had been done no favors by the way the championship scenario played out in late 94, you and I were just speaking how we're going to set this up. Diesel was done no favors by the way this world title match was booked. It is the second of 3 pay-per-view matches Bret and Diesel had had. Some think this is the best. I kind of lean to the Survivor Series one later, 95, which is the third and final.
Right.
I guess it's actually there's 4 because they wrestle in February of 96.
Yes.
Too. So it's the second of 4 times they would wrestle on pay-per-view. I liked this match. Bret works kind of heelish.
Yes, semi-heel. He tended to do that when he was in there with whoever was going to be the main babyface because he was trying to give the shine to them. That's what he did with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12.
Yeah. And he did it with Undertaker the year after in 96 too, a little bit.
Yes.
But what's funny is, whereas in other instances, like with Shawn or Taker, and obviously Austin, they wound up doing the flip. He actually wound up going all the way heel, not just teasing it. Whereas the crowd was kind of like, yeah, we're booing Bret. Bret was the crowd's choice, you still felt here. It's still, you watch this match and you're like, when it was over and they do the screw job finish with Backlund and Michaels and Owen.
Each man was attacked by their enemies.
Yeah, each guy was attacked by the enemy. They restarted it a couple times. This is when they started kind of getting into overbookamania.
Yes.
And how you'd see main event title matches booked, up, until the present
day.
day.
A little bit of proto-attitude era here.
Yeah. And I liked it. It was new. I think this is kind of like a borderline 4-star match, I'll be honest with you. Maybe that shocks you.
I could never give anything that ended the way it did 4 stars.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty good on balance, better than most Diesel matches I've seen.
But here's the thing. When it's over, you are sort of like, God, I kind of wish Bret Hart was
It's
champion.
awful. It was an awful...
Don't you kind of like, when the whole sequence is over, and especially Bret comes back out later in the match, in the Rumble, and draws a lot of heat, beating up Backlund and Owen, costing him that, don't you just kind of wish that Bret was still champion and not Diesel?
Well, here's the thing. And at the time... I didn't, just because I believe when you make a move, you got to see it through. And I thought that I didn't have a lot of hope for the Diesel reign, but I thought they had to see it through.
I agree with you there, but it was obvious, though, and this was really early on in his reign.
Right.
When you watch it, and again, they probably just shouldn't have, you talked about it, they should not have booked this match.
Well, and that's, we talked about this off air, and I'm gonna throw out a thing here. I can't say... This is, as they say in the journalism biz, deep background. We've had a number of folks on the show who have booked with Vince or are familiar with it. J.J. Dillon, who booked with Vince, Jim Cornette, who booked with Vince, others like Jerry Lawler that have been on the inside. One of the people that I know who has booked with Vince told me this on deep background because I was asking them about Undertaker Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. How do you not know that Undertaker is going to get the snot beat out of him? Severely, going to go to the hospital because Brock Lesnar only works stiff, and Undertaker's a beat-up 49-year-old guy. And the person said to me, Vince McMahon books with that day in mind, in this case WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar, Undertaker was a huge WrestleMania match, and that's the extent of Vince's thinking about that. And I thought that's one of the most valuable pieces of insight that I've ever received about Vince's way of thinking, and it applies so much to this scenario because if you're not going to put over Diesel more effectively. And again, there's a lot of smarks that are going to be listening to this and go, well, he shouldn't have been put over Brett. I'm not saying that he should have. I'm not saying he was a deserving champion. I think he was a garbage champion by the time it was all said and done. And by the way, at Survivor Series 95, they rectified this, and they did put Brett over him. But
only to be a lame duck champ to put over Shawn.
Right. But Kevin Nash, for as much of a self-serving guy as he is on shoot interviews, and by the way, they just did here's a free plug, a tremendous trial of Kevin Nash as far as his career over at Squared Circle Gazette, the folks that I think are doing the best ongoing wrestling podcasts out there these days.
What about us?
Liam O'Rourke, Carl Jones, and the guys. Ongoing. This is the show that's about everything.
Okay.
We do special series. They're ongoing.
Okay.
They do this every week or so. Collectively, I think we are on a par collectively with them that nobody else can touch.
I like to put myself over. You know that. And how ironic that we're talking about Kevin Nash and I want to put myself over.
Well, exactly. And he's so self-serving. Nobody's more self-serving than him. But he's right when he's complained about this match, because if you're going to put him in there with Brett, how do you not have Brett put him over? Because otherwise you have the split thing. I got news for you, Vince. Merely playing Diesel's match at the music at the end of the match does not mean that you can fool people into thinking that which
a nice bluesy theme to it. I don't know.
How generic was that? Like his whole gimmick. Like I can't stop. I can't watch it through the retro eyes and be like, why is this guy named Diesel? Why is there a truck on the Jumbotron?
Because he runs on diesel power.
Why does he run on diesel power?
I don't know, Ricky.
Why
okay,
do they play blues
there.
music for him? I mean,
I like the blues.
How do you not have a guy? I love the blues. I love the blues. But how do you? He's your main guy, and he doesn't have a fleshed out character.
He was rushed to the top anyway. But no, I see. It's funny. Again, we spent a lot of time in the '94 show, 2B, I believe, if I'm counting correctly here, making comparisons to today.
Yeah.
This would be like if on like the April pay-per-view, assuming Roman Reigns wins the title at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
This would be like if you did Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan as your title match and it went to a non-finish.
Well, here's the thing. For as completely wrong-headed as I think it is to put Roman Reigns over Daniel Bryan at the February pay-per-view.
At least they had him put
At least they made a decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
And they didn't hear. This just made, and it's funny because we're going to talk about making the champion look weak again in '96. It did. It just made Diesel look weak. And remember, his title reign was. It's amazing it lasted as long as it did.
Yeah.
Because at WrestleMania, the crowd was cheering for the heel Shawn against him.
Right.
The crowd was getting smarter during this period and was gravitating to. And he was in there with better workers, and people realized Brett and Shawn were more talented.
Right.
And that really hurt Nash. But you're right. The way this thing was booked did him no favors. And he didn't get a lot of offense either. Like, Brett totally looked like the star in this match.
He did. And it's a thing. To me, this is nihilism booking, which kind of brings me back to that quote from Walter in The Big Lebowski. Say what you will about the tenets of National Socialism, at least it's an ethos. Yeah. Well, you can't have nihilism booking.
Yes, that's
you
very
can't.
good.
Thank you.
So, okay, world title match. It's a good match with a crap ending that does Diesel no favors.
Right.
We agree?
Exactly.
We're starting to agree too much on this program. Look out now.
Yeah.
All right. Before we completely take a dump on this Rumble, let's talk about the rest of the undercard.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's semi-memorable. As memorable as they could make it. So, they didn't have a lot to work with
There's
here.
a difference between memorable and memorable in a good way, though.
I don't think it was bad, the undercard. I don't think it was bad. One great, but one bad. So what we had, so now we've talked about this, starting in '93, the Rumble becomes very much tied to WrestleMania.
Yes.
And they didn't have any great programs to headline WrestleMania 11. Mm-hmm. Diesel Shawn was going to be the world title match. Everyone knew it. So, I mean, Shawn going into this thing, and we'll get to this in a second. Everyone knew Shawn was going over in the Rumble.
Right.
But Diesel versus Shawn, even compared to like the previous couple of years, is a pretty weak main. So they needed something. And what was the something that Vince McMahon went for? Lawrence Taylor. He also, now Lawrence Taylor wasn't really advertised. They had put him over at the start of the show that he was here. He was not a draw for the show. The draw for this show was actually Pam Anderson.
They opened the show with a segment of her getting out of her limo, passing by the wrestlers with their wolf whistles and whatnot.
By the way, I thought Doink, if you rewatch this again, Doink and Mabel's reaction was absolutely tremendous. And Tatanka looked like he wanted some, too. As a heel Tatanka looked like he wanted to bring her back to the old reservation. I think you need to go back and watch that because those three's reaction is just face to. I think Dink actually was out there and wanted some too.
You know what? We talk about no long-term character development. You mentioned Mabel. Hints of Big Daddy V yet to come in here that would follow.
No, they were all like catcalling, and so yeah, the Pam and she looked so enthused to be there.
Well, and here's the thing too with her and with LT. You know what they were going for? What they were going for 10 years earlier was, Liberace and Billy Martin. We have such a hot product, the stars are attracted to it like magnets. When it was the other way around, they paid an arm and a leg to get hot stars there because they had to.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. With Roy, yeah, we will. There will be a future Rumble where we get to talk about where a celebrity really worked.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Because I want to reference something.
But here it did. You could just tell it reeked of desperation. That's my problem. Like, even back then in 95,
right.
It was kind of, like, still embarrassing.
It was.
Like, in the celebrities, I don't think really wanted. Like, Pam Anderson, I think, wanted no part of this.
Right.
Like, she, ran out of the ring when she was posing with Michaels.
Must have been a hell of a payday for her, is all I can say.
She wasn't even really, I don't remember doing any interviews where she had any of these. LT... Look, it wound up not working out as well as they'd hoped.
LT was great. They couldn't ask for more out of him.
But
he was
actually turned in,
good.
for the match, he turned in a solid performance. I know that he, I think, later came out and kind of regretted that he did it. But
he did a real good job.
But he actually had a good match. I mean, you couldn't ask for any more out of LT. You just had...
Part of it's the bar of expectations again.
But you had... you just had a cold product that was just... It's like when you have, it almost reeked of when there's some shitty show that's going down the tubes and they just desperately try to have some cameo. That's what this was.
Well, and here's the thing about the top of the card. I'm going to reference something I said in the 94 broadcast and something that I said in the History of WrestleMania anthology that we did because it ties together.
You have to remind me of that because I have no idea what I said in any of those.
Okay. Well, this is stuff I said, so I have a good memory of it. But Backlund and Hart, we talked about that. That was third from the top, I think, by default at WrestleMania 11. You couldn't go to WrestleMania 11 with that second from the top because you'd already killed Bob Backlund.
Yes.
So they needed something else in there. Here's the thing, and I talked about this with the 94 thing, and this is not a criticism of it, but you talk about the wrong guy for the wrong time, Jerry Jarrett. Now, I like Memphis booking. I like territorial booking, but you get to when you're doing Shawn Michaels and Diesel tag team champions split up, one of them gets the title, WrestleMania main event. That's Lawler and Dundee in Memphis. That's a tag team splits up. One of them's the champion of the territory and whatever. Memphis-type booking was the wrong thing at the wrong time because you already didn't have a lot of star power.
Yeah.
They were the only guys in the promotion that really mattered.
The Click had totally taken control.
The Click had taken over.
Back power.
Exactly. Now, in the undercard, too, I think you see from the other matches here, there weren't a lot of guys that mattered. Jeff Jarrett was out there. You've talked about him being a bad Intercontinental champion, and I agree.
That was off-air I did, so let's talk about it here.
Off-air, yeah.
Okay, we'll go to that, and then we'll double back to LT.
Oh,
in the tag title match. So, I think I'm going to make a case. I was thinking. So I watched this match. So it's rate. Okay, let's stop. Let's take a deep breath.
Okay.
Because we need to reset. We've been all over the map here.
Okay.
Click, world title, LT, Pam Anderson. Now we're talking about the Intercontinental title.
Welcome to 95, folks.
All right. Now let's start.
All right.
Jeff Jarrett, Razor Ramon. It's the opener, right? The Intercontinental title match. It's the opener of this show.
It is.
Okay. How do you spell Jeff Jarrett? Notover.
Agreed.
I think of all the pre-90s, when the Intercontinental title still meant something, and Razor Ramon was a good Intercontinental champion. He was over. 94 was his high watermark, in my opinion.
I've said before, I'm surprised he never got a sniff at the big title.
Well, you know what killed him? This feud. I thought this feud was a disaster. I thought Jeff Jarrett is the worst Intercontinental champion that there ever was when it mattered. His 99 reign right before he jumped to WCW was good, and he was effective then. This made the Intercontinental. This was like one of those things where I remember going into it. You're like, oh God, I hope they don't put the title on Jarrett, and they did, and it hurt Ramon because he never really won it back from him. Now Jarrett, the match he loses, that eventually later in the summer to Shawn Michaels, like one of the great matches of the era, but this was not a good title change.
Mediocre match I have in my notes.
It was not a great match, and Jarrett is just. I thought Jarrett was not a guy deserving of the push. He should not have done it. So I didn't like. But you do get a title change here. Have you ever had we had the world title change
in '91? Slaughter and Warrior.
Is this the only? Is this?
That's it.
Yeah, this would be would be this would only be the second title change in Royal Rumble history
and first IC. Footnote to history: the show still sucked. Sorry.
Yeah, but it plays into what I have. Eventful undercard. I say. So then let's get to the. We talked about the world title match.
Okay. Yeah.
Talked about the Intercontinental title match.
Mm-hmm.
There is an Undertaker IRS that is a real blink and you'll miss it affair. Let's not talk about that.
It was to set up the King Kong Bundy thing for WrestleMania.
This was an Undertaker was going
IRS steals back the urn. The Druids are out there. The worst of the Undertaker character excesses.
Yeah, and you talked about the $1 Million Corporation.
Yep.
Being that at the end
worst, quote unquote top level stable ever.
Yeah, and so watch me just breeze through Undertaker IRS and go to,
as we should,
another $1 Million Corporation match. The tag title match.
Yep.
The titles were vacant at this point because Shawn and Diesel had split up.
Right.
And so they had a tournament that was not exactly the 86 Crockett Cup, how shall we say.
Exactly.
And it ended with the underdog team of 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly. This was the second year in a row 1-2-3 Kid was kind of in a random underdog team. He and Marty Jannetty the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a little bit that one better than this one with Bob Holly.
Absolutely. Then the other one didn't have Bob Holly in it.
Yeah, and they're going against Tatanka and Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, this was totally played up going in as, Tatanka and Bigelow are obviously going to win, easy one. I did like, by the way, the comparison to the, at that time, upcoming 49ers Chargers Super Bowl.
Yeah.
How they compare. They were like, well, these guys are the Chargers here.
Right.
By the way, do you know that is one of 2 Super Bowls ever in the last 20 years that Vegas lost money on? The
really?
49ers Chargers. Yeah, because the 49ers were a huge favorite. They covered. Everyone was on the big favorite. You would have been on the big favorite back then. I could have been wrong against you.
I'm not only impressed by that nugget. I'll bet there's some reputable football research websites out there that are impressed by that nugget as well.
Yes. The only other one that Vegas lost money, the only other Super Bowl in the last 20 years that Vegas lost money was ironically, the Giants beating the Patriots outright as an underdog because so many people took them on the money line.
Oh, I didn't realize
so
that.
Those are the only 2
Okay.
Since the infamous Black Sunday when the books got middled, they weren't as
People
sophisticated.
loaded up on the Giants on the money line?
You got to remember that they didn't need to load up on them. It just needed to hit.
Oh, because that had to be a hell of a payoff.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it just had to hit.
Okay.
Anyway, from football back to the squared circle. So they played this up as like, Kid and Jannetty Holly aren't going to win it all.
From the Giants in the Super Bowl to a match involving LT.
Yes. So 1-2-3
planned it that way.
Yes.
You did.
Yeah, 1-2-3 Kid and Holly win in a fluke finish.
Yeah.
And really, though, the tag titles were secondary to what was about the big LT angle with Bam Bam Bigelow.
You disagreed with me on the history of WrestleMania anthology.
Okay, remind me what I said.
I'm still right about this.
Okay, I love how you.
I believe there was miscommunication on the fall, right, with Tatanka and Bigelow that led to that. It needed to be Tatanka taking the fall. You can't put Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event of WrestleMania after he did a job to the Kid and Holly. That's the wrong way to go. He could be frustrated the same way.
You're right.
Frustrated about Tatanka. You agree with me now? Awesome.
Oh, I didn't at the time?
I don't think you did.
I don't know what I said. I was probably, let's be honest. Those were in the years. I don't remember anything. So
as opposed to now?
I'm much more clear of mine. Yeah, I don't think that necessarily mattered, but I'll say this. The angle worked. I thought this angle was pretty. It was like, whoa. He shoved LT. It was played up pretty good.
But now
LT responded well.
But now it's outside superstar versus mid-carder to lower mid-carder by taking that loss.
Well, they had a plan for Bigelow. It didn't work because obviously no one really wanted to really work with a guy who jobbed LT. after the fact.
That wasn't going to get him sympathy like they thought. They thought he'd get a good sympathy face run out of it. Why would they think that?
Well, you talked about Vince's thought process a few moments ago.
I guess.
So the match itself is a nothing match.
Yep.
But
just
the angle,
average.
the post-match angle is effective.
Right.
I guess as effective as it was certainly coming out of this show the
Right.
most talked about part. I'll never forget they opened up Raw the following night. Vince McMahon, I would like to apologize for the actions of Scott Bam Bam Bigelow last night.
Yeah, the announcer's selling it like it's the first plane hitting the Twin Towers. They were a little over the
Jesus
top.
Christ! Can we edit that off the program? I don't want to be affiliated with something like that.
Well,
I don't think
I think they were over the top. That's my point.
Jesus.
I illustrated it with an
a
over
good
the
Republican. Oh, I should figure a good Republican boy like you always referencing 9/11 for heat.
9/11, 9/11, 9/11.
Yeah.
But it was
Rudy Giuliani. It's funny. I mentioned that Rudy Giuliani joke earlier. I'll tell you at the start of '93. I'll tell you what. If throwing on an NYFD hat and posing for pictures of the Joe Torre is all it took to be an effective executive, then Rudy Giuliani would have it down, huh? So
this was during the Giuliani administration. It all ties in. But
yes.
So
okay. So the undercard's not terrible. I mean, the era's bad and it's hamstrung by, but I don't think the undercard is horrible. Like,
it's not as bad as the match itself, the Rumble match. You're right about that.
Okay, the 95 Rumble
because they had a Bret Hart match in it.
Yeah, the 95 Rumble is the worst Rumble ever.
Yes,
it comes in at 1 star for me.
1 star for me. I can't believe this.
Wow, you have the 94. I thought your 94.
94 is a quarter star above this.
I
had them
very
close.
That's a bad rating with Morris. That's a bad rating, and I think you're gonna. And I think on the day you meet your maker, you are gonna look up to the heavens and say, if I have one last wish, it's I can re-rate.
Let me
the
tell you
94
something.
Rumble.
St. Peter definitely agrees with me on the 93 Rumble being better. Listen, how you can I have said this to people this
is
week
so
when
much
talking
worse
about
than
this.
94.
I have talked to people about this off air and been like, how does Kyle split the hair in the 2 worst years in the company of like 94 was pretty good, 95 sucked. I don't get how you distinguish them. They're 2 chapters of the same story. 2 bad Royal Rumbles back to back.
I don't think they were. Well, let me go for it. So
Okay.
95 is it's funny. I talk about 88 not being even really being a Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
This barely was a Rumble. The big story here was the 1-minute intervals, I thought. And it just made for a match that just blink and you miss it. This was not a Rumble. The 1 minute, first of all, it had no star. You bitched about the star power 94. This was way worse. They were just bringing out guys who hadn't even been on TV. All these tag teams. I think the freaking Bushwhackers were in this thing. And Michaels, unlike Flair in 92, and then as we'll see in later years, he who shall not be named in 04.
Yep.
It was very obvious they won. As a matter of fact, it was so obvious, and the star power was like Meltzer actually doesn't hate this Rumble. I think he gave it 3.5 stars.
I can't fathom that.
This must have been during Dave's drug period or something.
I really respect Dave Meltzer, but
here's my thing.
I can't agree.
He's like, his opinion was, and I read it was, I wanted to make sure I had it, was, because the lack of star power going to the quicker intervals was a good idea. To me...
It was like they were embarrassed and just wanted to get it over with ASAP.
But that's my problem. It didn't help. It was something that had to be done out of necessity because you couldn't do an hour with this crap. And there was no drama. There were no feuds.
I have referred to this as...
Other than Bret Hart, who wasn't even in the match coming out and beating up Owen and Backlund, there was no feuds highlighted here. It basically was, so they're like, all right, everyone knows Michaels is going over. We have no star power in this thing. So because of that, we'll make it 1 minute intervals, and he's going to go number 1 coast to coast. So... I don't give them credit for that at all.
Coast to coast at 38-41. I would dare say...
I always hate when they say, people have won this before at number 1, Shawn Michaels, and they don't reference, that should come with an asterisk.
Well, he probably went longer intervals in years when he didn't win it. This had to be... This may not even be top 5 in terms of longest intervals to win.
It's probably not top 10.
Longest
for a win?
Longest interval to win. It may not be in the top 5. Even
Flair
though
and Mysterio automatically come to mind.
They were longer. Yeah. I don't know who else.
I have to think other ones. A lot of the other guys they
Benoit
played short.
was early in 90.
Benoit.
04. Yeah. 38-01. I mean, that's a joke. Well, him and Davey Boy both went wire to wire because
and you know what? Here's
Davey
another
Boy's
thing
number
too.
2.
So yeah, not only did number 1 go wire to wire, 2 went wire to wire and was the last guy out. Here's my problem. Davey Boy Smith was a weak foil for this thing. Like, he wasn't doing anything at this point.
Right.
The ending with, they thought Michaels was out, and then he, like, did the, the balancing act and came back in. That was okay. That, like, Michaels is the sole highlight here. There is nothing else in this match that is remotely redeemable besides Shawn Michaels.
Well,
I mean, the Heavenly Bodies come out. The Blue Brothers come out.
The Blue Brothers I have a problem with. The Heavenly Bodies, not so much. I'm a Bodies fan.
Well, yeah, but they were jobbers at this point.
Well, they were misused.
Everyone,
as a good internet fan, I'll say they were misused. But
everyone was a jobber in this thing.
They were.
Like,
Star Power was worse, the absolute worst. And here's the thing too, and I referred to this as the Ultimate Warrior Memorial Royal Rumble. Do you know why?
No.
Because with the 1 minute intervals, everybody had to run. If you didn't run to the ring, the next guy was coming up on you.
Yeah.
Watch it again and see.
And when you watch this, like, none of the eliminations matter.
I've also referred to this as the Fever Dream Royal Rumble because of the pace of it. I did actually have a bad dream subsequently about this match.
So, okay.
Part of it's for the medication that I take where I'm prone to getting dreams.
There is one Rumble, I'll argue, that actually did have a worse pace than this.
Mm-hmm. Not psychological medication,
yes,
folks.
Okay. There is one Rumble where the pace was I think worse than this. This just had no chance. You had no like Luger was done by this point. His star had faded. Crush was in it late. No one cared.
Right.
It was you had one guy who was obviously going to win, and you had to kind of retailor your entire Rumble to make any drama, and the drama that you did manufacture with that ending, which I don't mind the ending with Michaels. They played Davey's music. Davey Boy Smith's going to WrestleMania, which didn't sound like a good idea. And Shawn comes in and eliminates him. That's it, man. I mean, I thought the entire thing sucked.
Well,
easily, to me, this is easily the worst Rumble. The second worst Rumble, which we haven't talked about yet, and it's not going to come in these years, by the way.
Okay.
Is easily the second worst Rumble.
Okay.
But the fastest Rumble is how they promoted this, and that it just sucked.
Fastest was not a good thing.
Yeah, it's worst.
Yeah, no, because it was awful. The pace of it really, really hurt. Again, the Skin the Cat ending was unique. Not many guys could have done that anyways. I mean, Shawn Michaels, Ricky Steamboat, we can kind of name on one hand the number of guys that could pull off that finish athletically. Although, as I said to you off air, years like this, 92 with Ric Flair with the near misses, it makes you wonder, what would they have done if there was some kind of F-up where the winner goes out accidentally? It could have easily happened.
This one it could have, because Michaels the whole match spent teasing eliminations.
And here's the thing: Shawn Michaels, by his own admission, was pilled up half the time in this day and age. So it's a real thing here that is a marvel. I want to call attention to this as far as star power. You didn't mention this, but they put something on. They put a video feature on before the match. It was customary to talk to people before the match. What do you think you're going to win? What do you think your chances are? They hilariously tried to microwave Lex Luger, acknowledging that he had a bad 1994, but just to try to build up somebody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This, when he came out, you're like, okay, here's at least somebody. But you're right, he was done.
They played it up. The announce crew, Vince really kind of played it up here. Vince was on the announcing, and I'm looking to see in my notes here who the other one was.
It was
this
Jerry
year.
Lawler.
Oh, was Lawler? Okay.
Yeah, and he kept saying, and they kept kind of burying everyone. Like Lawler's like, I think this guy's my pick.
Right.
And he's like, no, it's not.
Right.
It was like really bad.
It was bad. The other thing too, you're going to call me, Nelson nitpicker for saying this, but I did notice Vince retroactively erasing the 88 Rumble from history. He referred to the 89 Rumble in Houston as the first one. It was the first on pay-per-view.
Do you know what I thought was like the low point of this and just showed how bad the promotion was?
What?
There's a point late in this match where Vince McMahon goes, Dick Murdoch is going to go to WrestleMania. And it's just like, look, Dick Murdoch, man, it was a good worker and a good hand.
Yep.
But just like I bitched about some of those guys in 93, dude, this is 95.
Yeah.
I mean, Dick Murdoch. And he was like in there toward the end. So it was like Henry Godwin.
Right. Right. And awful Royal Rumble. Again, you and I both agree 1 star. You and I both agree the worst ever, representing the nadir period of the company. I mean, all you can really do is bury this because, again, that was the worst period. Where you and I disagree, and we'll say this in looking back and in looking ahead, is I see 93 to 97 as a trough. From 93, it was a fall down into 94, further into 95, and I see 96, 97 as starting to climb out of it.
I'll agree with that. I mean, it's a slow climb. And
you seem to think it was a step up from 94 to 93, so you and I don't agree with the shape of this.
No, okay. I think the Rumble match was better. You know what? No, I actually do like. To be honest with you, I prefer 94 to 93.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I do. No,
I don't.
You're right. I mean, certainly I prefer the Rumble. But
right.
I prefer Brett as champion to Yokozuna as champion.
Well,
I prefer that. Yeah, I prefer 94.
And that's the thing. The actual year 93, I think I probably dislike it about as much as I do 94 and 95. I just find the Rumble to have been better. The Rumble, to me, it was
see, that's
less of a drop off from 92, more of a drop off to 94. Again, that's what I'm saying. 94 and 95. I think 93 was a trough year just as much as those two, but I think the real trough years in terms of the Rumbles were 94, 95, and that's where you and I disagree.
Correct. I thought 94 with Bret Hart was a brief glimmer of hope in this down year period, but at this point it's over. They went with Diesel, they went going 95, but they will have gone back to Bret Hart by the next time we convene for 1996. But only in a half-assed manner, as there is a new top dog in town, a 12-year-old boy's dream we need to talk about.
Exactly. And this entire era with the new generation, this part of it kind of comes to a head because Diesel is going to be on his way out by the time we next convene, but a real sense of culmination at that point in time, and we'll talk about this with 96, booking that managed to enrage both Bret Hart and Diesel. Usually one of these two guys was happy at a given time, but they would both be pissed off a year from now, and we'll get into that with 96.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the Periodic Table of Elements.